Alexis, have you ever seen Point Break?
I have not.
It's the Swayziest. Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. I mean, among others, but the big ones.
Okay.
Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers makes a little cameo.
Very nice.
It's real fun. This episode not only references Point Break many, many times, but the plot is Point Break.
So I thought, is Point Break a car racing movie?
No, they're surfers. But they're surfers who tour the world surfing the best waves in the best seasons, in the best places. And they fund this lifestyle by, during the off seasons, robbing banks. And I think they call themselves the ex-presidents or something. But, like, they wear presidential masks and they rob banks. And so Johnny Utah, Keanu Reeves, is a former injured football player who, like, either was almost pro or did go pro briefly but got hurt or something. Or maybe it was college, I'm not sure. Anyway, he's a cop and he goes undercover, basically as himself, but not as a cop. As, like, a injured, now surfer, he's found the light.
Yeah, much
it's
like
so
Shawn
good.
does. Yeah.
Yes, and, like, he really bonds with Patrick Swayze's character, and there's a whole part in Point Break where this really mean, terrible, like, involved with drugs surf gang that we've had run-ins with throughout the movie, they get busted, and then everybody's like, obviously they were the bank robbers, good work all, and something doesn't fit. And Johnny Utah's gotten in too deep, man.
It truly is this episode. Like, I don't need to watch Point Break now, because I know it's about surfing, and it's this episode of Psych.
This episode. It's so good. The ending's like a little more tragic than this one, but, it still works, in my opinion.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is such a fun episode. I'm pumped for this. Are you ready?
I definitely didn't pick up any of the Point Break references, except for the very blaring obvious ones. But I did pick up a lot of Grease references and a lot of Fast and Furious references. So
Same.
I'm ready.
Okay, we'll
ready
collab.
To talk to 'em. Yeah.
It's showtime.
This is
To the Blueberry!
I am Alexis, and I'm a real-life Gus.
I'm Kaylee, and I'm a real-life Shawn.
Together, we are a real-life best friend duo who decided to start a podcast for really no other reason besides we wanted to talk to each other more often and talk about Psych, our favorite show.
We get to hang out virtually. It's pretty great.
I laugh about it. I think about it sometimes because, like, when Kay and I were watching Psych in real time, we used to watch it either on the phone with each other or, like, we would call each other right after to talk about it. And we just decided to record ourselves doing that and make a podcast about it. It worked out really well.
Yeah, we get a lot of, like, throwback moments for us in these episodes, so it's really fun.
Today's episode is Season 5, Episode 5, Shawn and Gus in Drag Racing.
In parentheses. And I was saying to you earlier, I love the art form of drag. I just love it. I don't think Shawn and Gus, not that they couldn't do it, but I don't think they could do pretty drag. They could do, like, artistic drag, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, built around a character. But I don't think they could be, like glam.
Yeah, maybe Katie Lang, but, like...
That's so good.
The episode starts in 1990. Little baby Shawn and little baby Gus are in Henry's truck.
They are stealing Henry's truck.
They were just gonna drive as far as the driveway.
But they couldn't even stop because Shawn couldn't reach the brake pedal and Gus was refusing to be the feet and insisting that Shawn just get taller.
Luckily, Henry comes home, stops the truck. What are you doing?
Less of a wig on Henry this time. Clearly receding hairline. He's dressed in a suit. It's a little rumpled. The reason he's home at an odd hour is that he's a detective now, Shawn. He has different hours. And maybe Shawn really wants him to write these down. So he knows.
Henry is absolutely furious and screams, "You're not old enough to drive."
I just wrote, period. But also I wrote, stripes and plaid.
Little baby Shawn, little baby Gus.
Yeah, baby Gus is in stripes and baby Shawn is in plaid.
I do think it's interesting. Kaylee told this to me last time, but this is the last episode with this little baby Shawn. And we go through a small period after this where the flashbacks are not Shawn based, they're other people based. And a lot of those flashbacks are Henry based. And so we've made this transition where, okay, now we don't have a little baby Shawn for a little while. Henry has a new job. He's a detective now. And he's already losing his hair. I think it's a very nice, I don't know if they did it all on purpose or if it just worked out this way, but it did really work out for them.
This is the reason Shawn aced the test, all the tests, and never became a police officer because he was insistent on keeping his hair.
I believe it.
Mystery solved.
We can totally talk about that in Shawn and Gus the Younger Years. I'm going to keep pitching that until somebody hears me. Okay, present day, and everything is very Fast and Furious feeling.
Oh, we are in the dark. We are at a weird, undisclosed location. There is a, what do you call that kind of a truck that can sort of angle itself to take on a moving load?
Yeah, I don't know, a truck for car. I don't know, a truck for cars or something. It was very fancy. They were ready to take this car into the truck, but then a carjacking happens of this Lamborghini.
I mean, the fact that this was happening kind of in the middle of nowhere with some tough-looking people, I was like, are they loading up a stolen car to, like, move it in this enclosed truck? And then it gets stolen again? That was my question. Because I feel like we find that out later, but It looked that way.
Yeah, I think so. Lassiter and Juliet are getting called about the carjacking, and when they get the call, Lassie's like, "That's not just a carjacking, that's a Lamborghini," and he is set.
It is a white Lamborghini Murcielago, and I guess they're in pursuit now. They take some turns too fast. Jules is like not happy with Lassie's driving, and they find the Lambo, and they proceed to chase it. I wrote, high-speed chase over quickly.
They lost him, but luckily someone else found him. Lassie gets the call and said, "No one approaches that vehicle until I get there. Do you copy?" Because he is sure that this is a ring of street racers who have been jacking cars to finance their lifestyle. Which is pretty similar to everything Kaylee just described about Point Break to me.
Yes, I think that's exactly what that is. It's also pretty Fast and the Furious, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Upon arriving, Lassiter finds a dead guy in the front seat, and he is shot in the head.
Lassie's been investigating these guys. They've been working in town for about 4 months. The dead guys are thief. The Lambo is stopped. We got some action music as we looked out the dash cam perspective of Lassie and Jules' car. We're going to put a pin in that. We got some actual, like, in the show, there was action music playing during the car chase. So, pin on that perspective.
Right after
Then we get our credits.
Right after opening credits, Shawn and Gus arrive at the scene of this Lamborghini/dead guy. Shawn is looking over the dead guy, and he immediately sees that he has a skull ring, an altered VIN number, there is a scrape on the curb, and there's a parking spot for Fred Chung Sulfur Exports. And
a tire mark.
I'm so thankful it's a tire mark because I wrote time marks, and I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah, there's a particularly sort of like wide, distinct tire mark right there. And I just wrote for this rapid fire Psych out because he's just doing his like observation thing. Lassiter's instantly like, go away. He says, very territorial.
He says, shoo.
Shoo. He's so territorial about this Lambo. Like, this is just a through line. Get ready. Shawn says, it's such a lovely crime scene you have here. I like what you've done with the, Gus says, yellow tape.
Oh. It's called crime tape.
Okay, well, I was only over here looking because Gus and I made a car just like this one. Built it from scratch in auto shop.
That's a Grease reference. We'll start there. We'll keep going. Shawn is like, we're going to do this because this has all the makings of a Psych special. Fast cars.
Fast women.
Fast food.
Murder.
That too. And then Lassiter says, I will thank you to get lost. I want to figure out how to use that in my everyday language.
Then he also says, Miller, escort them from the scene.
They decide that they are going to remove themselves. They hop in their car and the blueberry burns out on the way.
Well, they say they're gonna race Lassiter for it. So Gus chucks his keys in the air. Shawn grabs them. They run to the blueberry. They get in, squeal away, and Lassie goes, go give them a ticket.
At the Santa Barbara Police Department, Lassiter and Buzz are talking about the case. We know that he had been going 90 miles an hour because there was a tracking device under the hood.
When he was shot, he was going 90 miles an hour. I'm sorry. The sudden death of the driver didn't make this Lamborghini spin out of control or something crazy?
Or at the very least crash. Like, he glided to a perfect little stop.
Pin.
After being shot in the head. He likely had no cognitive recollection after being shot in the head. So he couldn't have been like, oh, I should hit the brake. But there wasn't even an airbag.
So what had happened was, and we'll find out who did it, but the passenger side window was shattered when he was shot through that window. If he was shot while the car was going 90 miles per hour and then it glided to a stop, the murderer must have been going at least that speed to have a steady shot at him because it didn't come through the windshield. You know, it wasn't someone watching him approach. That's the most dangerous kind of assassination I've ever heard of.
Oh, yes. Because the murderer easily could have, or I guess the murderee easily could have, like, spun out, and then the murderer would have died too. There's some improbabilities of this episode that I am willing to overlook at this point because the episode is very funny. But
there are some people who left reviews on IMDb who were not willing to overlook some of these discrepancies and nonsensical statements about cars. So
yeah. I want to put it on the record that even as a non-car person, I still caught it. But I'm going to overlook it because the episode's very humorous.
Lassie and Buzz are watching dashcam footage of the car chase, and Gus and Shawn enter with popcorn.
Shawn said, watch for the flash, Gus. As soon as he hits 88, he goes back in time. And this time, he doesn't go to prom with his sister.
It was his mom, and it was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Come on, man. That was the throwaway. So we could make an entrance.
But you got it wrong. And then Shawn just goes, I can't do this with you right now.
Lassie wants them to leave, but Shawn is certain that it was another street racer who shot this guy. Somebody in one of those hot rod type vehicles.
Tell me something I don't know.
The VIN has been altered?
Also, America has never lost a war when donkeys were in use.
I knew that. Not the donkeys. That's very interesting, but about the VIN number.
There's a whole part about Lassie figuring out where the shooter was or something like that. And Gus is like, why don't you just extrapolate how long it took the car to coast to a stop? It's just what Lassiter told Buzz a minute ago.
Shawn's response is, yeah, what Chocolate Einstein said.
And then we see, as the dashcam footage still plays, Lassiter is humming action music on the video from his dashcam.
Shawn calls him out on it.
Lassiter walks over to Jules. We have an ID on that victim yet?
Yes, we have the details. His name is Max Contreras? I don't know. Contreras. He is a street racer. He has a lot of priors, and he is a known gambler. He owes a lot of money to one Logan Pageant, who is both a car collector and a loan shark.
Lassiter gives us that little detail. Shawn is like, actually, it's pronounced Paget. Lassiter says no. Shawn says, it is when I say it.
Shawn starts throwing the popcorn at Lassiter at some point. And Lassiter's just like, no, goodbye, I do not want you on the case.
Shawn also says, let's go talk to this frog. Jules says he's not a frog, and that's a slur. Shawn makes a joke about the French being known for their lovely sense of humor. And when Lassiter tells Shawn that, not you, you're not coming with us because you're not on this case.
Shawn goes, Dad!
He's on the case.
Lassie has been taking too long, trying to figure this all out on his own, and now a guy is dead. Lassiter
and that comes straight from the chief.
Who we don't see.
No, we don't see this episode, but we do get quite a bit of Henry, so, I mean, I guess I'll take it.
Lassiter is going to go question Paget, and Shawn and Gus are going to go try to find other street racers.
Who may have run in the same crew as Max.
Lassiter said, what do you guys know about street racing anyway?
Only what we've seen in Fast and Furious, which is everything.
Lassiter steals Shawn's popcorn, and Henry tells Shawn that he needs to do this case by the book and report everything he finds to Lassiter.
Sure, done and done. The boys walk away, and Gus is like, "You really gonna give everything we find out to Lassiter?"
Of course not.
Don't be ridiculous.
We follow Lassiter and Juliet first, and they found a fancy car, which make and model I did not get. I just know that Lassiter likes them. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Lassiter starts pointing to all of them. He goes, that's an 83 Avanti. It's based on this other Avanti from blah, 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 blah. And then and then he goes, that's a 70 Z-Type. That's an 09 Aston Martin. And Jules quips, we have work to do, Mr. Bond.
In comes Paget, and Lassiter said, hi, Mr. Paget.
It's actually Paget.
I've heard it both ways.
Oh!
From Lassie, yes.
Well, Paget is being a total Bond villain in this scene, so it gives me great glee that we already got a reference. Haha.
They ask Paget about Max. He says that Max was a business associate who worked with him occasionally. He was a very good mechanic, and he liked him. But that's pretty much all.
He said he was an artist, irreplaceable, like some of your precious porcelain dolls.
I don't collect porcelain dolls, says Lassiter.
Oh. Strange. You look it.
They ask about the money that Max owed Paget, and Lassiter was like, I know that loan sharks don't kill people because dead people don't pay.
Paget says, yeah, okay, well, I haven't talked to Max in weeks. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get this ready for an auction. And he starts, like, turning on the car and doing stuff.
He's literally revving out the engine so that Lassiter can't speak. Lassiter finally gets his attention and points out that he was the owner of that very Lamborghini that Max was killed in.
Yes, and my Lamborghini was taken from a valet at a restaurant.
Why is there no police report about that?
Must have slipped my mind.
Lassie's like, I think you're hiding something.
Maybe I just have one of those faces. I love, what's his name? McFadden, I guess. This actor who's playing Paget.
Oh.
Yeah, he's really well known for being in Braveheart as Robert the Bruce.
Okay.
And being in the movie Robert the Bruce as Robert the Bruce.
We're at a garage now, like a mechanic's garage, and Shawn and Gus have been having no luck so far.
Yeah, they've been to 5 places. No one is in on the racing. No one knows anything about Max.
Okay, we'll hit up this one, and then we'll go for some astronaut ice cream.
Damn right you will.
Gus says hello to a pretty mechanic, as he always does, and Shawn introduces himself.
Oh, yes. He says, I'm Shawn, and this is my associate. MC, clap your hands.
With a Z.
We should say, she doesn't get her name said in episode for quite some time, but her name is Gina, and she is recognizable from a bunch of stuff. NCIS Hawaii, we said. Mm-hmm. Some crossover on other NCIS shows, and also for being married to Nick Lachey and co-hosting Love is Blind with him.
Which I didn't even realize until today. Either of those things, in fact. Super love the name MC Clap Your Hands.
I know. Every time we saw that, we laughed with glee in my home.
They ask her about the street racing, and she asks them to leave.
Shawn wants to get in on that street racing action. Gus says, or any kind of action. And she says, yeah, I don't know anything about that, so you can get the hell out of here. Then she goes, with a Z. So Shawn sees that they have some, like, canisters of NOS, and he psychs out on a hand scar on Gina. It looks just like a scar that our friend got when she got screws put in one of her joints. Mm-hmm. And she has a weird finger placement as she's working with some of her tools, like a wrench and
basically it looks like she can't bend her first two fingers.
And Gus turns around and he's like, dude, she is lying.
Some really cool guy drives in a really cool car.
I wrote super hot car, super hot guy, plus danger music.
As soon as he gets out of the car, he throws his keys at the wall, and they hang and land perfectly on the key rack.
Shawn is like, whoa, that is the best intro move. I've been trying to work on something like that since the time I accidentally threw Gus's wallet into the fireplace.
There's a whole thing, and ultimately Shawn blames a squirrel, which I think is just funny because of the whole squirrel assassins thing.
So we find out much later that the hottie's name is Tommy. But for a while here, I just have him in my notes as Hottie because he's a very handsome gentleman.
I call him Dude for quite a while. And then at another point, I'll change his name. And then it will take a little while till we finally get it's Tommy. But I'll explain the name change when we get there.
Right. So he asks who these guys are. And Gina's like, they're nobody.
Shawn said, that's not right. We are experienced street racers who also dabble in flatulence.
What?
I'm sorry, stamp collecting.
That's philately.
I'm afraid that's the word for fart.
Get the hell out of here, says Gina.
Gina wants them to leave, but the
Gus goes, damn, girl.
the dude is actually really enjoying their humor. He thinks that they're actually maybe ready for some fun.
Shawn is like, look, I race hard, you race hard, he's got that head. Where's the next race? He points at Gus and just references this beauteous head.
The whole line, though, is, I race hard, you race hard, you're an awesome key flipper, I can play Sowing the Seeds of Love on a recorder. Oh, he has that head.
That's it. Shawn says, where's the next race? And Tommy says, it's one of those things, man. If you've got to ask, you don't belong.
But if you can find the next race, I'll be happy to see you there.
So as they're sort of getting ready to leave, Shawn notices a cell phone over on a desk. And so he uses Gus as a very unfortunate distraction a couple of times here.
Knocks Gus over and screams, I'm sorry, he's all thumbs.
Yeah, it was like into some, like a filled cart with some empty and some not so empty, like oil cans or something on it.
He starts flipping through the emails on that phone, and we see a cardinal, a tree of some sort, a seagull, and Abraham Lincoln. All the while, Gus is trying to clean up, and then Shawn hits him again, and then he's trying to clean up. There is some speculation from the internet that on the desk cart thing right here, there is a pineapple tray. Kaylee nor I saw it, so
we didn't find the pineapple.
There's no hunt here. We failed to find the pineapple, even with cheating. So if you found it, email us at totheblueberrypodcast@gmail.com.
So when we're back out in the blueberry with the boys, Shawn is like, dude, where's your map? Where do you keep your map? Give me it.
Under my backup breath mints next to my lavender scalp oil.
Man, you're still using that? Ever since we did that model thing?
A player needs to shine, Shawn.
So this is a reference back to our Black and Tan episode.
Yes.
Did we call it Haas and Pepper?
Something like that, yeah. There's actually a number of references to other episodes in this episode that I find very funny.
Yeah, same.
That one was a good one, though.
We figure out that the pictures that he saw in those text messages on the cell phone all correspond to street names, and they had like dates and times also in the messages that he noticed. We didn't. And he goes, dude, I know where the next race is.
All they need are wheels.
No way. You already tricked out the blueberry once.
Shawn has a plan. Shawn always has a plan.
I just wrote Shawn's idea face.
At the race, Gus is holding up the hood of Henry's truck.
He's like, this is embarrassing.
Shawn said, just stand there and look cool. I need to get my Paul Walker on. Fast and Furious.
So we referenced Paul Walker in the last car episode where, didn't they have to rescue Shawn? Yes, it's where Shawn got taken. And then, yeah. So at the end of that, Shawn is like, I would never be Paul Walker. Because they were making a lot of Fast and Furious references. But now he's
that makes you Vin Diesel.
Shawn tries to talk to some tough guys about Max. And this crazy guy named Manny is about to rip him to shreds.
Basically, he's asking too many questions. And then in comes our good-looking dude and vouches for Shawn. And then they have a moment.
So Tommy fully diffuses the situation. He gets in between them, and he gets in the guy's face, and he's like, you're not going to do nothing. You're going to turn around, and you're going to go. And, it works. This is exactly something that Swayze does for Keanu in Point Break.
Because this episode is Point Break.
It also might happen in Fast and the Furious. Let's be
sure
real.
It does, yeah.
That I'm just not as familiar and obsessive about that one, so I can't be sure. We may never know.
Tommy, the dude, is actually quite impressed that Shawn, although likely would have died and they never would have found his body, didn't back down from that guy.
Shawn is like, yeah, I have this thing. I don't really like to think ahead. Yeah, I get that, says Tommy.
Shawn is just in love with this guy.
He fanboys so hard right here.
You're awesome. You have a great crew. You look like
You look like a flea, which is a Point Break reference because Anthony Kiedis is in that.
There we go. And they take the guys over to check out Henry's truck, which they all immediately laugh at.
Look, she may look like hell. She may sound like hell. She might run like hell. She might smell like hell. Gus cuts in and is like, Shawn says, but she is fast as hell.
They are ready to race.
Yeah, Tommy's like, I guess we better do this.
Shawn wants to build up his street cred. At this point, Shawn and Tommy are lined up. And Shawn screams out the window to Tommy, who's about to race, look, Nix, we're playing for pinks.
And Tommy literally responds, pink slips? Like ownership papers? That's a direct quote from Grease.
My next line here says, because this is so Thunder Road, Danny. He goes, no, Pink's hot dogs. I have a coupon.
Gus says, that's my coupon.
So at this point, I start calling him Nix. Because in my brain, that was his name. But we find out later that his name is Tommy. And I was like, oh, he called him Nix because he was calling him Kaniki, like Thunder Road.
Except then we got on IMDb to check the fun facts, and we found out that this character's whole name is actually Tommy Nix. We never get that in episode.
Nope.
It was this little throwaway thing that could have definitely been him calling him Kaniki. Somebody wrote it in IMDb. His name is Tommy Nix now.
Yep. I don't know, but in my mind that was 100% to make that straight up Grease reference.
Oh, it straight up was.
Because it comes up a little bit later too. I have another side comment later.
Ooh.
Shawn says, Nix is like, good, because I really don't want that truck. But Shawn has a secret weapon. He opens up the glove box and he has NOS.
He installed NOS on Henry's truck, and Gus is shook. He thinks this is volatile. They are surely going to die. Shawn couldn't have done this right.
Do you have this whole quote by chance?
I do not, but we get underway in our race.
I wrote the whole thing down. It will be nowhere near as funny with just me saying it. But it ends with Shawn saying, geez, Gus, you know so much about this. I should have had you install it. Because Gus keeps asking him all these very specific questions about things he should have done to make it safe. All the while, we have a Cha-Cha wannabe standing in front of the cars with her two scarves in the air, getting ready to wave. The race started, just like Cha-Cha did at Thunder Road. And she was so a Cha-Cha wannabe. She had on her little skimpy shorts and her little tight clothes.
She had a bouffant hairdo.
They did
Yeah.
that on purpose. There's no way that was not on purpose.
Now, one of the things that I found on IMDb, people nitpicking this episode, was literally everything Gus was saying was nonsense. Race is underway.
Takes off. Shawn wants to use the NOS. Gus refuses. They fight. Shawn hits the button. The truck takes off.
They are neck and neck with Tommy, and he was like, "Are
Shawn
you kidding
screams,
me?"
"Viva Mexico!" Tommy Nix wins by a hair. And Shawn screams, "We did it!"
Gus says, "We lost. He won."
Or, "He beat us, Shawn." By so much less than I thought he would.
Yeah, it was actually really, really close. That made it exciting for everybody involved. Except now, the boys don't have the use of their brakes in the
They
truck.
crash through a fence and then skid to a stop. Again, if they don't have brakes, how did they skid? Crashing through the front fence would have sincerely slowed them down, but it would not have gone, "Erk."
I mean, they could have, like, thrown the wheel, and then that force could have, like, stopped their forward momentum enough. But I don't know that they wouldn't still be coasting. Like, is that perfectly level? Did they throw on an emergency brake
That's
that we
possible.
didn't see them engage? Okay.
They ask if, or Gus asks if Shawn is dead.
I'm not. But if you are, can I have the $6,218 in your rainy day money market account?
How do you know exactly how much money I have? Up
Well,
comes
guess.
Tommy, and he is incredibly impressed by the two gentlemen for just going through that race.
Gina's like, maybe they just got lucky, though.
But Shawn sees a skull, the same skull ring that Max had on, that she's wearing as a necklace.
Connection.
And Tommy invites them to a party at the garage.
Yeah, tomorrow night we're having a party at the garage. The next morning, Henry goes out his door, gets into his truck, tries to back down his driveway, and ends up careening into the garbage cans on the curb.
Immediately followed by one of Henry's favorite things to do in the Santa Barbara Police Department, berate Shawn and Gus.
I almost got killed in my own driveway. I warned you to, blah, blah, blah. You better have gotten a use out of that stunt.
Shawn and Gus they have identified the gang that Max used to roll with, and they are getting into the gang, and they will soon have nicknames.
Yeah, like Torch and Road Rash.
Lassiter and Juliet have Paget in interrogation, and they're like, "Bro, you lied. You talked to Max on the phone
Oh, really?
right after your car was stolen."
And then they ask him again, why was there no report of that car being stolen?
Lassiter has a theory. Max was going to get the car back for him, and he was going to offer... Did I say the wrong name again?
No, you were perfect. There's a part that I wrote out that remembering it happening is driving me to distraction because Lassiter asks him why there was no report again, and Paget says, "I think I got busy," and Lassiter screams, "Bull crotch!" And I hate it so much, but it happened.
Lassiter's theory is that Max was going to take the car for Paget, and that was what Paget was going to use to clear his debt. But Paget did not trust him and thought that maybe Max was going to keep the car, so he tracked him down and he took him out. Lassie already has him on conspiracy to commit grand theft and is thinking about adding some murder charges to it.
Paget gives in. He's like, whoa. Listen, I did hire Max so I could get my car back. And I called him that night. But he didn't say that he had a change of heart and that he was keeping my car from me. He said he was sure that someone was after him. He sounded scared and he knew that they were going to get him.
Bum, bum, bum.
Lassie and Jules go upstairs. Henry turns to Shawn and says, Lassiter's the lead on this. You need to honor that. You need to tell him what you know right now.
Shawn agrees, and he says the killer is somebody within this crew.
Jules says that actually makes sense based on what Paget told them, because it would have to be somebody who was a better driver than him to kill him.
Lassiter goes, "Adequate job, Spencer. O'Hara and I will take these skinheads down from here."
Jules looks so confused. Shawn's like, whoa. You can't just, like, go in there all cocksure. Like, these are, like, a deeply closed-off tribe mentality group of people. Like, we will be with them tonight.
Besides, we already have nicknames. Gus is like, I am not being Road Rash. I want to be Mellow Rush.
That sounds like a terrible energy drink that gives you tongue hives.
Crankshaft?
From the comic strip, the Cantankerous guy?
Mrs. Willowberry?
And then Henry and Lester both scream, enough!
Henry wants Shawn and Gus to collect evidence, and they're in, and Shawn
Lester
goes,
says they have 6 hours.
Shawn goes, you ready to go? G-Force?
That's what's up.
Fist bump. What?
And then as they leave, they're humming Lassie's Danger music. I don't know if you caught that.
So I'm not trying to give Lassie a total pass, but when I was learning to like back up in a car through obstacles, I always used to hum music to myself. Like to get myself like ready and focused. I'd be like bum 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 bum, and that was just what I did to drive backwards. And that would have been pre this show, so I didn't pick it up from the show.
I don't think I've ever done that. I self-soothe using music, so I can understand, but...
At the garage, nope. At the garage,
Yeah.
They're having a party.
There's a fire breather.
Shawn made a chain out of paper clips.
What he didn't have was a lot of time. What he did have was office supplies.
We see Tommy sending away a pretty lady, which I put in my notes because in my mind that meant something, but it doesn't. But all of his crew members are talking about their worst crash ever.
Stig was talking about 06. And then they talk about Tommy's worst one just last year. He was trying to get this Camaro up to 200, flipped the car 6 times, was in a coma for a month.
He doesn't think it's a death wish. Getting to that speed is what makes him feel alive.
So Gus is the one who asks him if he has a death wish. And Tommy says, it's just the opposite, Whittleberry. So somehow Whittleberry's stuck instead of G-Force. I don't know. Tommy says, yeah, it's about God's greatest gift, pure adrenaline, freedom and boundaries. He keeps talking about, like, it makes you feel so alive, freedom and boundaries.
Shawn said, how fast you get?
Tommy says 187.
Shawn quotes Point Break at him and tells him that he needs to go for it.
You want the ultimate thrill? You've got to be willing to pay the ultimate price. And Tommy knows exactly what he's talking about. He's like, Point Break? Heck yeah, man.
Gina does not look happy throughout this entire thing. And they ask her about her fingers and how she ended up with the scar / abilities.
Yeah, he calls it her war wound. You know, what happened there. So Stig and Juicebox tell us that it was in Vegas. It was a Dodge Challenger or Charger. I don't know, one of those. And they ran through a red light. They got T-boned. And then we find out that it was Max who was driving. Her ex-lover. He walked away without a scratch. She lost the use of 2 of her fingers.
Basically, the crew does not like Max and starts kind of being mean
Trashing
about him. And Tommy's like, listen, we need to remember him as a friend. Remember him
He used to be a good friend.
as he was. And then Gina asks Shawn to meet her outside. Before we move on, Stig. I don't know if it's on purpose, but did you ever watch Top Gear?
So I saw this in the fun fact. I'm more familiar with the British Top Gear, not the American Top Gear.
So it is in the British Top Gear.
Is it?
It is. So Stig,
but he's always in a helmet.
Stig is the masked driver who who takes every car through this crazy obstacle course that they have laid out so that they can gauge on a consistent driver how quickly the cars can get through the obstacle course. We never know who Stig is. We never find out who Stig is, but I think they must have put that in there on purpose.
No, they did. It says Stig is a character from Top Gear. It's a play on the anonymity of racing drivers' full-face helmets and the running joke that nobody knows who's in that racing suit.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it was on purpose.
I think so. I don't know why else they'd go with Stig, but I also don't know why they went with Juicebox, so we'll just have to be okay with it.
This guy who plays Stig, Derek Hamilton, he was a major character called Razor in Need for Speed Most Wanted in 2005. And that was a racing video game developed by EA Canada and published by Electronic Arts, or EA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In the garage, Shawn is trying to impress Gina, and he has this whole story about how the Nova in Spanish means no go. And
I mean, Nova literally means no go, but Nova doesn't mean that.
He asks about Stig and Juicebox hating on Max so much.
She starts pawing at him.
She's for sure, like, feeling him up, but it's not for any sort of good reason. She is definitely looking for a wire.
Yeah, and he's like, are you crazy? I'm not a cop. I'm a car guy, like you. I mean, obviously you're a girl.
She wants him to prove himself, so she starts asking him about what he sees under the hood of her car.
And she starts listing it. He's like, yep, naturally, sure, absolutely, that's what I'm seeing. And she's like, okay, well, all these things I named, those are the specs on Tommy's car, not mine. Now, this is kind of fun because we could argue that based on the crime scene, they made certain jumps in logic about the specs on the car at the crime scene. And maybe Shawn was just like, I'm sure that's not what's happening, but it to me, it makes too much sense. So it's stuck in my brain.
Because the very next part of this story is that he notices the tires, and he is pretty sure that it was
specs.
her car that was at the crime scene.
Yeah, he notices some specks of like curb paint or something.
Mm-hmm. She pulls a gun on him and is like, tell me who you are. His response is, I'll have to go back a little bit. It was 1976. Fernando was at the top of the charts. A Georgia
peanut farmer was the leader of the free world. That's a Jimmy Carter joke. He didn't get inaugurated until 77, but who cares? He was elected.
Gus tackles Gina to save Gus. Gina punches,
to save Shawn.
To save Shawn. Gina punches one of them, kicks the other, and the brigade comes in.
Oh yeah, the cops bust in, and the rest of the crew steps to the doorway and is watching from their chill room. And Shawn turns to Lassiter and goes, "Punch me in the face!" And Lassiter's all like, "No, I'm not punching you in the face." And Shawn goes, "Well, Ronald Reagan was a terrible president." And Lassiter goes, "You son of a bitch!" and punches him in the face.
Gus runs out. I'll go
quietly.
And Lassiter takes Shawn in, trying to hide his cover. Okay, I get that.
Okay. We didn't say in their little hang sesh, there's this point where Tommy says something like, "You tell me I can't do something, I'm just gonna show you I can," or something like that.
Again, very Kaneki of him. I don't know if Kaneki really says that, but very Kaneki of him. Okay.
We don't get enough character building on Kaneki. That's always something I felt robbed of from Grease.
Santa Barbara Police Department. Buzz is there. He has some mean stuff to say to Shawn and Gus. Juliet and Lassiter are certain that it was Gina because, in fact, it was that very same gun that Gina had pulled on Shawn that was the one that killed Max. Also, her name is not Gina. It's Mary Armstrong.
Gina's an alias. Shawn, or Henry just kind of breezes through "Great work, all. We got it all tied up." And Shawn's really bothered that her name is Mary. And Shawn's really bothered about a lot of things here.
He ex-lover, part of the crew that stole the car.
Oh yeah, the whole rundown of she fits this so perfectly. All the car evidence and the gun evidence, and he was her ex-lover, and he betrayed the crew, and she took him out, type of deal.
Okay. During a walk and talk, Shawn doesn't think that it's right. He said it's all very vexing.
I'm vexed. Aren't you vexed?
It doesn't make sense that it worked out the way it, quote, should, because nothing they do works out the way it should.
Shawn's like, "That's not our way." Shawn says, "I don't buy it."
The very next scene is Shawn.
No, and Gus says, "Well, you're not going to get it for free."
Oh. Shawn and Gus's stuntmen drive manically into the Psych parking spot. And Shawn is feeling his very Fast and Furious life.
He's living life a quarter mile at a time.
And then Shawn remembers the use of Gina's fingers when he's looking at his own. Both the way she held the wrench, the fact that she held the gun with her left hand, and then he starts singing Lassie's Danger music.
And then he breaks it down for Gus, and he's like, she had to shoot with her left hand. He was shot from the right. She can't hold a gun with her right hand. She can't hold a steering wheel with her right hand. How is she driving at 90 miles an hour neck and neck with this guy and shooting him with only the use of one hand for this purpose?
Gina Mary is not the killer.
Gina Mary. Every time they said Mary, it just made me sad in this episode.
About Mary.
Yes, I was like, Gina Armstrong? No, we can't. Or Mary Armstrong. What was Mary's last name for realsies?
Lightly. Mary Lightly.
Mary Lightly. And then Mary Armstrong. I hate it. I hate it, Alexis.
The real Mary. We'll just stick to Gina. Which Shawn does throughout the episode because he truly does not like the fact that her name is Mary. Which maybe has something to do with Mary Lightly, but we'll go back. At the psych office, Shawn is like, all right, Blacklock. Matlock.
Like Sherlock.
If it... Or Sherlock, yeah. If it wasn't Gina, who was it?
Gus says, obviously it was Tommy.
Gus, don't be the second drummer in 38 Special.
Gus is like, dude, this club is like a mafia, and Tommy is the street racing Don Corleone. You're just blind.
Max broke the code of honor, and Stig is in love with Gina, and Juicebox doesn't trust him. There's so many other people that it could be besides Tommy.
Gus says, you know it's Tommy. And Shawn says, I don't know.
You know it's Tommy, and you've gotten too close. You've gone all Point Break.
Oh, you broke the number one undercover rule. You got too close. This is just like Point Break. And Shawn is like, nuh-uh. And Gus says, isn't it Johnny Utah?
Don't you dare use that name as a slur.
Shawn is like, give me your keys so I can storm out of here.
No, take your motorcycle.
So then Shawn stops at the coat rack and says, peacoat or windbreaker?
Windbreaker.
So he grabs it, he leaves, the door shuts, the door opens, Shawn walks back in.
Worst stormer outer ever.
Followed by a gun-wielding Stig, Juicebox, and Tommy.
Tommy goes, psychic detective. You must have seen some crazy stuff. Once there was this shark. Actually, it was two sharks.
Shh! Shawn! And
Shawn tells Tommy it was him.
Yeah, it was him. He goes, ugh! You are a thief and a murderer! Like, Shawn has to, fess up to himself right now.
Oh. And you almost managed to bamboozle me with your incredible awesomeness.
Almost?
I'll never doubt you again, Gus.
Now who's a liar?
Max was using the car as an insurance policy. He thought that there's no way that
Tommy would
ever sacrifice the car that he loved.
Yeah, the thing that was going to get him to that, ultimate freedom ride. Tommy says, but I'm not one to lose, ever. And he was sloppy, so he had to go. Gina's going to be found innocent. They'll have to find her innocent because she is. And by then, I'll be long gone.
He just has one thing left to do.
Shawn psychs out right here and he goes, you're going to steal the Lamborghini again? That's insane. It's in police custody.
He is not going to steal the Lamborghini. Shawn is going to steal it for him.
Oh, yeah? And what if I just go there and tell them what you're doing?
If I hear any cops going, your friend here is gonna die.
Well, Tommy says, you're probably gonna have to let the cops in on it, but if I hear any coming towards us, I'm afraid Gus is gonna be killed. And by that he means he's gonna kill Gus.
The very next thing is Shawn in the Lamborghini bringing it to Tommy and the gang.
Whoa, that was so fast.
The people in the impound lot probably weren't paying attention.
No, they something about Rice Krispies.
They were paying attention, but then I busted out the Rice Krispie treats. It's like flypaper, man. Seriously, those things are really sticky.
So Shawn is like, now where's Gus?
Gus before the keys.
Gus is in the trunk, and it's like, come on, man, there was room in the back seat. And Stick and Juice Box were like, it's a really small back seat, though.
Tommy's like, listen, man, I like you, but I will kill you if I have to.
So he hands over Gus. He tells his boys to scatter. They're like, yeah, we'll see you later. And then Tommy's getting into the Lambo, and then he's like, you know, I was serious when I said it would be good to have someone like you around. You could come with us. And he literally offers to take Shawn with him. He's like, you got the kamikaze in you. I can smell it from a mile away.
It's not kamikaze. It's CK1. It's for men and women.
And he just basically calls Tommy on all his bullcrap. He's like, adrenaline is not God's greatest gift. Friendship is. And I would never hurt Gus. Like, lest we forget that this hot man spouting ridiculous nonsense about pseudo-philosophy, like, he killed a guy who was supposedly one of his best friends. Okay? This dude murdered a guy and feels no compunction about it. He's just like, all right, on with my life now.
Yep. Now I'm in the Lambo and I'm out of here. Gus said, so we're just going to let him go?
What? No, thanks for saving my life?
Thank you. But we're still letting a murderer go free?
I've got about 3 zucchini and a gourd that says we're not.
I think that line is amazing. I don't know in my first watch that I realized what it meant. But it's wonderful. We see the Lambo driving. Tommy is out on the open road. The cops are following him, but he's going to outrun them because he's going to hit 200.
Oh, yeah. We see him get up to, like, Lambo on a straight highway. PD in pursuit. They can't keep up. He puts down the throttle. There's a police blockade up ahead near an overpass. Tommy's hitting 180 miles per hour. And the cops are like, oh, my God, this psycho's not even going to stop. And it's just, like, right under 200. He's about to hit it. And then his car starts to fail. And it literally just gets slower and slower and slower against his will until it stops right before the cop cars.
He's there. All the guns are on him. He surrenders. The very next scene, we see them pulling out 3 zucchinis and a gourd from the tailpipe.
Juliet's like, vegetables in the tailpipe. I can't decide if that's brilliant or stupid.
Probably stupid.
It's a fine line between the two. Tommy, as they're leading him into the cop car, goes, Shawn, it's still about freedom and barriers. No regrets, bro.
Good luck selling that to the other murderers in Cell Block C, bro.
And then Tommy's like, Ms. Whittleberry, it's nothing personal.
It used to be G-Force. Gus
Briefly.
says to Lassiter and Juliet.
And Shawn says briefly, but he corrects Tommy. He says, actually, it's Gus. Lassiter says, congratulations on the collar, Spencer. This is a really big one. Unfortunately, I will be recommending that you are suspended.
Because you don't negotiate with kidnappers. That's Cop 101.
Well, they're all like, what? Lassiter's like, you stole a car. And Shawn is like, he was threatening Gus's life. And Lassiter was like, he was bluffing. And Shawn was like, I'm not taking any chances with Gus's life. And then Lassiter like puts it down like, you don't negotiate with kidnappers. It's Cop 101, blah. And Juliet chimes in finally. She's like, but it's Gus. He's one of us.
Barely.
Gus like attacks Lassiter. He's like, excuse me?
I'm quite fond of you, Gustard, but I've always wondered what professionally you bring to the table.
Okay, Lassiter. Number 1, the blueberry.
The blueberry.
He actually says it. He calls it the blueberry. Whew. Second time in this entire show. We will be keeping track. I think we have a sound for
Number
that.
2.
Number 2, the super sniffer.
The snooper sniffer. The snooper sniffer, the super sniffer, and a positive working attitude.
Oh, he says number 3, positive working attitude. He lists 4 and 5. We can't really hear what he's saying in the background because Lassiter's walking away and Gus is following him, and Shawn to Juliet is like, it's a shame that you didn't get to see me behind the wheel of this machine.
Why don't we just hop in and take it for a little spin?
Jules says that's back as evidence now.
I know you want to, because you've got the kamikaze in you. Kamikaze in you. I can smell it.
That's disgusting.
It's Point Break.
You've
never seen Point Break?
I've never seen Point Break. I've seen Fast Break.
with Gabe Kaplan?
Shawn just confused. Heads away. Jules keeps walking. Shawn sort of tries to get into the Lamborghini.
And Lassiter screams,
Spencer, get away from their car! And that's the end.
The entire time that Shawn and Juliet were talking, Gus continued to list off what he brought professionally to the table.
Lassiter, kind of bemused, is just sitting there taking it until he noticed Shawn trying to get into the car. Again, He has Hawkeyes on that car. The fact that he allowed it to be stolen from Impound in the first place, miracle.
There's a funny line that Tommy has. He starts like looking for a tracker within the car, and he finds it, and he was like, oh yeah, the cops always put these in here. The cops are smart, but I'm smarter. Like, everything about Tommy was so narcissistic, maybe?
Broy mansplaining?
Yeah. Like he appreciated the fact that Gus and Shawn were funny. Like, he enjoyed the fact that they were smart, but he was smarter. He was better. He was never going to let anything get in his way.
They were clowns there to amuse him. Yes. Like, until they weren't.
Until they were those pesky kids. And that pup named Scooby-Doo.
So we got a good bit of Henry. We got some Buzz.
We got a Blueberry.
We didn't get Jules getting to say or do a lot this episode again. I'm waiting.
I do really appreciate that Juliet stood up for Gus here at the end.
Oh, absolutely. Because we've already established everybody has a relationship with Gus outside of Shawn now. Mm-hmm. Like, they're all individually, like, friends and have respect for each other and all kinds of stuff.
So we definitely already saw the Lassie and Gus pair up. Do we ever see the Gus and Juliet work together? I guess we did a little bit in Shawn Gets Shot in the Dark. Shawn Shakes a Shark in the Dark.
Yeah. When they teamed up to find Shawn to get to hang together, work together.
I think I'd like to see
because that was a
more of
Lassie
that.
Henry team up.
Yeah. I believe that would be better
Do we
pair.
ever get a Juliet Henry pairing?
I don't think so.
I feel like we get a little bit more Chief Henry, maybe.
We get
some Chief Lassiter later, don't we?
We get some Chief Lassie and we get some Henry Lassie. But I don't know that Henry would ever pair up with Juliet. And maybe I'm projecting, but it's one thing for him to lie about Shawn in general, or to lie about Shawn to Lassiter, but I think he has too much respect to lie about Shawn to Juliet and
I could see a circumstance where they are thrown together and like, I mean, let's be real. I don't think Chief has ever fooled for a second.
Oh, no.
I just feel like Jules doesn't want it to be a lie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to feel like she's been lied to.
It's not supernatural, but I don't want you to prove that you're lying to me, which in my headcanon is not the case at all anyway. Don't worry. These guys be psychic.
Because Henry is also a little psychic.
I mean, he gets it honest, let's be real.
Yeah. Good episode.
He had the perfect parents, the perfect storm of parents to make a psychic kid.
Oh, yes. Good guest stars, good episode. Holds up. Very funny. So many Grease references that I really enjoyed.
Much like Point Break, we're never quite sure what happens to Stig and Juicebox. Do they get away? Do the other minions ever get caught?
That's a good question. I hope they get new names.
They aided and abetted. They were complicit, but it's not not clear that they would have or did have any part in actually committing murder. But still, icky character traits here.
Yeah.
We have some fun stuff ahead of us. Some big episodes that we will remember, and we get some recurring guest stars that are very fun.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, and we get a cinnamon festival.
Is that this season?
That's this season. I need to buy the t-shirt. I might buy you the t-shirt. Let's be real.
That would be fun.
We get a little Karate Kid action.
We learn more about...
We get an alternate reality episode that I barely remember.
We learn more about Henry in this next episode, like I was alluding to at the beginning, where, he's making the detective change, and he's also changing sons, and then ultimately, I think at the end of this season, we're going to get a lot of understanding and backstory for Henry that we've actually started already. We will continue to grow as we continue to watch, but very excited to watch his character arc grow more and more.
Oh, totally.
Okay. I am Alexis, and that, my dear Gus, is why one should not text and drive.
And I'm Kaylee. 4, actually. And a phantom one that I call Rigby.
And this has been...
To the Blueberry! Psych out.